What's up, ladies and gents? This is your boy, the Dread Man, and I'm going to give you guys my fan movie review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And I'm going to do a separate review of spoilers only, so be ready for that. But anyway, on to the premise of the movie. Now, the movie pretty much picks up where the first Venom left off, where Eddie Brock interviews the serial killer Cletus Cassidy in his cell. And he keeps going back doing these interviews to get leads on all these murders that he's committed over the last 20 years. And on top of this, still trying to maintain his professional life as a reporter slash journalist and as a super slash anti-hero and the host for an alien symbiote. And there's a little subplot that I want to get into a little bit later in the spoiler review with the side characters. But yes, Woody Harrelson's character Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, is born due to a mishap with him being on death row. But overall, I do like the character development of Cletus Cassidy and Carnage. A lot of people say that the movie was a little bit rushed, but the movie only has an hour and 35-minute runtime. And one of the biggest complaints about this movie was the lack of an R rating. To me, it didn't necessarily need it, but it would have helped it just a little bit. And even though that Venom is a CGI character, of course, because you can only do so much with the special effects, but even though he's a CGI character, they do a phenomenal job of flushing him out as his own person. Now, the story and the plot of the movie overall is okay. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be true to the comics tick for tack, but it does make a lot of references to the original comic book series, and actually to the animated series as well. And that's people's main complaint about comic book adaptations. Oh, it's not staying true to the comic books. It's not staying true to the animated series. Listen, that's why they call it an adaptation for a reason. All I ask you, just give me what I want. A couple of cool acting sequences, a couple of references, a couple of callbacks, and some jokes here and there. And that's it. And also, one of the biggest, if not the biggest plus in this movie was the comedy. This movie is hilarious. The jokes, the back and forth between Eddie and Venom is the best part of the movie. And Woody Harrelson's Cletus Cassidy, he rocked his part because I'm not really used to seeing him play a villain or a villain psycho killer type of character, but he did what he was supposed to do. He showed up and he delivered. Now, the action slash fighting sequences in the movies, they were done pretty well, but a lot of people are going to complain about it because it's like, well, it's two giant CGI blobs fighting. How good could it be? But hey, you're going to be entertained with what you get. But as far as my rating for this movie, the action sequences, I'll give it a 9. The special effects, I'll give it a 9. The acting and the story, I'll give it a 7. The comedy, I'll give it an 8. But overall, I'll give Venom, Let There Be Carnage a 7.9 out of 10. But yeah, guys, if you saw this movie, let me know what you think in the comments, and my spoiler review is coming up next. So the movie actually starts off in the mid-90s with Cletus Cassidy being in an insane asylum, and the only thing that's keeping him going is the love of his life, another inmate by the name of Frances, aptly named Shriek because of her powers and abilities. And because of these special mutant powers, she gets shipped off from an insane asylum to an Area 51-like facility, and this makes Cletus go off the deep end even more. And in an attempt to escape from the paddy wagon that Shriek is in, she ends up getting shot in her eye and going blind, and she never forgets the cop who did it. And 20-some-odd years later, Cletus is on death row for all these murders. And Cletus takes a fascinating and almost obsessive interest with the reporter Eddie Brock. He sees something in him. So much so to the point where he keeps requesting him specifically to interview him. And thanks to some detective work from Venom, it gives Eddie the lead he needs to finally put Cletus away for good. And in one last visit before he's sentenced to death, he actually bites him on his hand, and he gets infected with the symbiote blood. And just as Cletus is about to be administered a lethal injection, boom, Carnage is born, and he wreaks all hell and just breaks out of San Quentin State Prison. And there's this whole huge subplot of the dynamic between Eddie wanting a peaceful life and Venom wanting to wreak havoc and be the symbiote that he always wants to be. And it turns into this whole you need me more than I need you kind of thing. And it ends up in Eddie evicting Venom from his body. But we all know the symbiotes don't work that way. In order for a symbiote to survive, they need a host. And not just any host, they need a strong and stable host. So Venom goes jumping from body to body, but nobody's strong enough to handle it. And doing all this, Eddie's trying to get his life back on track because he's so used to having Venom that he doesn't remember what life was like without him. And he even tries to rekindle his relationship with his ex-girlfriend, which we saw in the movie. But now she's engaged to this other douchebag, which is kind of a comic relief thing. And while all this is going on, Cletus/Carnage is causing all kinds of death and destruction in his wake. And all while trying to find the love of his life, which he does. And Venom knows that a monster has been created in the form of Carnage, because when you get a symbiote and put him in the body and mind of a serial killer, you get something incredibly insane. Something so insane that it's nothing that Venom or anybody like him has seen before. And of course you know that the main two weaknesses of a symbiote are sound and fire. So long story short, Eddie and Venom rekindled their symbiotic relationship in order to combat the bigger threat, which is Carnage. And how ironic is it that the object of Cletus' affection ended up being the downfall of Carnage, which was sound. But now the world knows that Eddie Brock is the host for Venom, so they go off the grid. And boy, that post-credit scene, woo, it pretty much confirmed what we already knew. The Spider-Verse. And Spider-Man